guys, it's Miss Ash here from room 1.4, and today we're going to continue our conversation about the southeast area of Michigan. And one of the places that is most famous in southeast Michigan is Detroit. And Detroit is quite known for its factories and its industry, particularly that doing with automobiles. And Mr. Eric talked about all the industry on Tuesday, so if you guys didn't check that out, you should go check out our Tuesday video to learn all about the factories and stuff like that. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys is about a time in our history when factories weren't operating at full optimal capacity, and that was during World War II. So it was a time of turmoil. Where people just really weren't getting along, and we had a lot of different beliefs that were happening, and we had some major struggles in our world. And during this time, we were in a position where we needed to work on our labor force, or so our workers. And during this time, a lot of the men in our world were participating in war, so they were protecting our country. And that meant they weren't here to do our jobs. And that is different than today, because today women get to work in a lot of jobs and we are part of the workforce quite a bit. But back in our history, that wasn't true. Women could only work in certain jobs, and that was things like being a teacher or a nurse. We were not able to work in every job that was out there. So I want to talk to you guys about that and about a thing in our history that makes Detroit special in regards to women and working in our history. So we're going to read a story called Rosie, a Detroit HerStory. Now, her story is kind of a play off the word history, but it has the word her in it. And we know that her refers to a boy or a girl. Her refers to a girl. So we are going to read a story that probably has to do with the history of women. So let's get started. Our book is by Bailey Sassoy Escrow, and it's illustrated by Nicole Lapointe. And let me just scooch this over so we can see each other a little better. Okay, you ready? A world war and a president's decree began a quest in which women were key. Heroines emerged that no one expected, young women building the unprecedented. Across America, women showed their might. Rosie the Riveter was born in this fight. And in Detroit, where battles never waged, they helped win a war and saw a nation changed. This true story starts before most women had careers and a world war occupied nearly everyone's fears. In April 1939, the Germans crossed over Poland's territory line. "The Nazis invaded. We have to help out," yelled President Roosevelt without any doubt. But as England and France both entered the fight, Americans suffered from nearness of sight. "Our oceans protect us. We're so far away." Their isolation no one could sway. With Churchill calling so desperate for aid, Roosevelt struggled to get his war plan made. Congress simply would not get on board with the thought he had to negotiate without being caught. In back rooms, there was born a political deal. "We'll trade boats and airplanes for a real estate steal." With that quite clever scheme, Lend-Lease was enacted. Now U.S. war material could be crafted. Foundations for airplane factories were laid, their production increased, more and more were made. As the newspapers published frightening war scoops, Congress still refused to send American troops. "Oh, the German Luftwaffe will never be caught. Building planes means workers will have to be taught." But Detroit answered back with a resounding cry, We'll do our best. We'll try and we'll try. Detroit knew how to build and how to build fast with knowledge of machinery that was vast. To build equipment at never before seen speed, the auto industry needed to take the lead. Lend-Lease ensured the Allies were not overrun until a sad surprise in 1941. On December 7th, early in the morning, Pearl Harbor was ambushed without any warning. Hundreds of airplanes led the Axis attack. The U.S. Navy was left battered and cracked. World War II was declared and everything changed. A nationwide war draft was quickly arranged. Off to the war, the men of Detroit soon marched. At home, blue coveralls were ironed and starched. Bandanas were tied around victory curls by new factory workers, women, and girls. From family bars to mom and pop shops, women took over the jobs and managed the crops. Ladies kept the lights on and the open signs hung, running businesses while men were far flung. Bright-eyed women were plunked from local high schools and automotive secretarial pools. They were tested for aptitude, measured and weighed, sent off to training classes without being delayed. Now that the fires of war and history were lit, the women of Detroit declared, "We can do it." The women's brave reputation began to expand, so songwriters teamed up with the Kay Kaiser Band. The group wrote a hit song that coined the woman's name, catapulting their war efforts to global fame. Bestowed with a nickname that's still with us today, Rosie the Riveter earned her factory pay. Top Bass needed a place to oversee all. Somewhere in Detroit, something big and quite tall. The Guardian building gave renter reduction, becoming a center for wartime production. From the Art Deco building, orders were spitting as all normal automotive production was quitting. Not a single civilian car would be made until the war ended with a victor's parade. From Liberator bombers to Sherman tanks, massive battleships to machine gunner cranks, bullets by the millions and bombs by the ton, the women of Detroit helped get it done. With a welding torch and a riveting gun, Rosie's invented new ways to get work done. Women retrieve parts quickly on roller skates. They use pullers, pulleys, and gears to stack heavy crates. The smallest would climb inside the airplane wings, attaching the rudder, steering, and flap wings. They worked all-night shifts without saying a word, even while practice air raid sirens were heard. Now off the Highland Park Ford factory floor rolled the Rolls-Royce engines that made planes soar. Shipped to assemble at a new Ford Endeavor, Willow Run, the world's largest factory ever. A bomber an hour was the Willows Run's goal, as the Rosies worked hard with heart and with soul. The Ladies' Air Corps was the best of the best, putting B-24s through every flight test. Rosie's image graced the Saturday Evening Post, painted by Norman Rockwell, and was seen coast to coast. Women war workers each had their own unique name, but thanks to strong Rosie, their labors found fame. Rosie's women war workers were an exciting new breed. On her, their lives depend, was Rosie's solemn creed. Her efforts kept the hopes of the Allies alive until one fateful day in 1945. May 8th brought Germany's unconditional surrender after millions of man-hours, regardless of gender. Many lives were shattered, losses deeply felt. Across the world, families grieved and they knelt. But among the great heroes who won World War II were Rosie's war workers, whose legends only grew. Troops returned to Detroit throughout the train station, men excited to come back to their home nation. But now the Rosies who built all the planes and warships were fired from factories and handed pink slips. Women found that as soon as the men had returned, their manufacturing knowledge seemed to be spurred. Some women were eager for regular pace, others wanted to get right back into the workplace. They'd spent 4 long years earning their own paychecks and could not accept that they were now the wrong sex. Today, when you walk onto a factory floor, you will find more women than ever before, because deep down in the souls and the hearts of each one rests the enduring victory all Rosies won. So at the end of this book, guys, there is a timeline of all the events from World War II if you want to talk about those with your family. And it tells you a little bit more about the history of our country and of the world in general related to the war. And there's some pictures of the women who were considered Rosies that helped make it possible for the victory to happen for World War II. And it also helped make it possible for women to have broader job perspectives. And at the very, very end, there are some vocab words if you guys want to explore those words with your families. Because I know there were quite a few words in our book that we don't use all the time and we don't talk about all the time. So this will be a really good place for you guys to check to see if you know what we were talking about and everything. And at the very end, it tells us about the author. Now, I know that in our lifetime, women in the workplace hasn't always been a difficult thing, but it's something that still happens. And in our world today, we still have to worry about everyone getting jobs when they want them and being able to have the skills or learn the skills to have the jobs that make them happy. And that still is something that happens today. So that's why this is really important, because the Rosies started something special in our country, and that was something that started changing how our workforce looks, and that's something we're still dealing with today. So, and that's something that does directly impact you and me, and it's something that is very special, and it's even more special because one of the biggest movements happened here in our state and in the southeast area of Michigan. So I hope you enjoyed that book, and I hope you learned something special about our country. And I would love it if, as a follow-up activity, you guys would make some planes or show me your planes around your house. I will include a couple links to some DIY activities so you guys can make some planes and practice your Rosie skills at home. Bye, guys. Hope you enjoyed today.